Have you ever worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, canon, it's canon, it's all. In canon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon podcast. We are your hosts, your hostesses with the mostesses, with the grossesses. I'm Boris, and as always, I am joined by the one, the only. He's wearing glasses right now, Phil.
Hey.
Jesus Christ. Oh, it's gonna be a long day.
Oh yeah, you didn't touch the button.
Yeah, hey, we survived that intro. We're actually recording. I'm not stopping. We're gonna keep going, right, even though you made me laugh. Welcome everyone to the It's Canon podcast for another week of an awesome double show. We have some awesome topics to talk about. On today's show, you're gonna be listening to Phil and I talk, rant, muse, joke about all of the news and all the happenings in the world of everything, of geekdom, of fandom, of collecting, of whatever it is we feel like talking about. And then on Wednesday for part 2, we will be talking about all things toys, collecting, buying, browsing, exclusives, and we will be joined by an awesome guest from Toy Wizards, Lauren Stone, and that's on Wednesday. But today, we're going to be talking about all things news. Bill, it's been a couple weeks. It's summer. It's hot as balls outside. How are you? How's everything?
I'm sweating, buddy. You know what? Things are good. You know, everything's just ticking along with this COVID situation and the world, and you know, it's again catching up on shows. I'm finished up, I think, on Snowpiercer. If it's a 10-episode season, I definitely got to the end of that. Oof. And then, so, you know, and I got to watch the movie now, just to comparatively see what the heck is going on in that theater.
Yep. So I'm a little behind in Snowpiercer, so we will not talk about Snowpiercer. I do apologize because I know some listeners love my Snowpiercer ramblings, especially when it comes to the one, the only, the beautiful, my future ex-wife,
Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It just feels so weird. I don't know. Like, seeing somebody that, you know, you saw so many years ago, and then she still kind of got it at her age, and she gives a great performance.
Yeah, she's a great actress. Like she's really good in the show. Like all joking aside, she adds a cool element. The way that she plays the Melanie character is really cool. And I think, you know, seeing her as a villain-ish type character is different, but it's also cool and refreshing. So yeah, she's been great in the show. And to be honest, like, it's just cool seeing these actors that we saw when we were much younger, you know, still go at it and still do their thing today. So that's Snowpiercer. You know, we're gonna talk about things we're watching and playing. So over the past few weeks, Netflix has released a lot of new and exclusive content. They've also released their top 10 most viewed exclusive movie list. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before anything, Phil, we have a very special birthday that I just want to call out because it's near and dear to my heart. And you're looking at me like, what the fuck is he going to say?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop on this one. Who did I miss?
So happy 25th birthday to Cher Horowitz and Clueless.
Oh, happy birthday.
25 years ago today, Clueless was released in theaters, and Paul Rudd looks exactly the same 25 years ago as he does today. That man has not aged a day.
I want his superpower. I'm telling you. It's unbelievable because if I think a couple like last year there was a First You Feast episode where they eat chicken wings. It's a YouTube show.
Hot Ones?
And Hot Ones, yeah. And that episode just killed me. Yeah, he does this trick with the iPhone and the camera to make everybody look like they got a little dinghy hanging out or it's a cooter or whatever. And I just, man, oh man, that guy just cracks me up every time. I love his Ant-Man role. I love everything about what he does in that kind of stuff. And I do find myself watching the occasional romantic comedy with Mr. Paul in it too.
I find myself watching the occasional romantic comedy on a regular Tuesday evening, get a little glass of rosé out, watch some rom-com, little Boris time.
It's a way to live, man, right after you finish your Golden Girls run,
Yep, that's something new you learned about Boris today. Boris watches and collects Golden Girl toys.
Yeah,
now, if they were to ever make
toys you're thinking of,
if they were to ever make Gilmore Girls toys, I'm like on first in line.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some Korean factory cranking them out right now. Just get the Gilmore Girls now. Everybody needs them.
Yeah,
Boris will be there.
I'll be there. And it's funny because the song actually has the words "I'll be there," and I was gonna start singing, but it's too warm for that right now.
It's too warm.
It's too warm.
Stinky hot.
Oh, when you wake up at 9 a.m. and it's 40 degrees Celsius with humidity, it's gonna be a hell of a warm day.
Yep, we just had the storms run through as well, so knock on wood, they don't trash the entire province here. But and there's a little bit of relief coming, but yeah, it's hot. It's hot everywhere, I think, in North America.
Yeah, it is. So and apparently it's going to be a heat wave for like the next week or so throughout the North America. So, Netflix, like I mentioned at the top of the show, has a lot of exclusives coming out right now. And one of the new TV shows that I made Phil watch, I don't know how far he's gotten into it or if he's even started it. But I wanted to talk about it right now, and it's this show called Warrior Nun.
Oh, I haven't started it, my friend.
I'm about 3 episodes in, and I still have no fucking idea what I am watching.
This does not bode well.
It's okay. Let me set this up. So it starts off like a Kevin Smith movie in the sense that you have a bunch of literal nuns in Rambo gear fighting demons with guns, and you have a girl who's dead on a table who somehow gets something stuffed inside of her, and I know that sounds all kinds of wrong, but then random shit happens, then more random shit happens, then she escapes, then she meets up with these random people who just automatically take her in and feed her food and give her, a roof over her head, and hilarity ensues. And then you have a flip side of the story where you have these demons and you have this priest and you have the Vatican, and it's just, I don't even know what's going on. And like I said, I'm 3 episodes in and so much has happened, but yet nothing has happened just yet. It's one of those
going to come together.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I'll start watching that. I watched The Old Guard.
Yes.
That came up on my Netflix feed, and you know what? That was a great movie. I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but I thought the writing, production, acting, everything about it, obviously graphic novel, It was just super well done. I cared about the characters for such a weird premise or different premise. And it worked. It
Yeah.
worked really well for me.
You know,
I
Charlize Theron is such a great actress, especially in these these action flicks. She's so good. Old Guard comic book by Greg Rucka. I read it. I wasn't a big fan of the art style, but that's not a reason to not like a comic book overall. And I thought the story was great, and I have to say, because Greg Rucka was involved in the actual Netflix project, it stayed so true to the feeling and the premise of the comic book that it was just so well done, and I can't wait to see more.
Yeah, it leaves it wide open, obviously, at the end for more in whatever fashion. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil it, but I was sitting there going, man, I wish this was. I wish I wasn't going to have to wait a couple years for the next movie. I wish it was more like a mini series or a show like that where I could be like, well, where's the next episode? Give it to me now. I want to know what happens. I want to know where this goes. I want to know more about these people and this power. I want to know. Yeah, it was very compelling. And hats off to them, because I know that we've all seen the Netflix shows come on and we go, oh, that's going to be fun. And it's just a train wreck of garbage, right? Like you get halfway into the movie and you're like, oh, I got to turn this off. And, it either works or it doesn't. And this one worked.
But
I'm
a big fan of train wrecks sometimes, like that Ryan Reynolds Netflix movie.
the Michael Bay one.
Yeah, that one is so garbage, but yet it's exactly what I wanted to watch at that point in time.
I know I have this litmus test where my dad, who loves action movies, I give him movies like that, and then he's like, I'll see him, and he'll be like, I turned that shit off. And I'll be like, all right, this is definitely a train wreck movie, because I couldn't tell because the production was so high. And I'm like, I'm feeling conflicted, but I'm still going to watch it because I'm curious. Yeah, that's my litmus test.
It's one of those movies that, would have done great in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. Ryan Reynolds drinking some Mountain Dew, eating Doritos because it's so extreme of a movie. Michael Bay explosions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. I liked it, but I do agree that was in the train wreck category to me.
And
so not the Riverside train wreck, more
Riverdale.
like the Snowpiercer train wreck.
Riverdale. Snowpiercer train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you.
I swear to God,
you got some TV coming to you.
Oh, shit. Now I'm worried. Now I'm concerned. We'll see.
It went places.
Yeah, so one of the things, we were talking about Netflix exclusives and things like that, and they've been releasing so much recently. It is absolutely crazy how much they've been releasing, and a lot of it, like, it's been perfect timing overall. But yeah, so Netflix released their top 10 biggest movie openings. I'm trying to see. So Bloomberg released a list of the top 10 movies that received the most views over their first 4 weeks. The Bloomberg article doesn't say, but it's assumed these are worldwide numbers, as Netflix has 182.8 million subscribers worldwide, including 69.9 million in the USA as of April 2020, according to the New York Times. It's also worth mentioning that a view for Netflix is only 2 minutes, because that's how long enough to indicate the choice was intentional. All right. So these are
weird metric.
Yep. Yeah, just framing things up. So like I said, their first 4 weeks. Number 10, The Perfect Date with 48 million. Number 9, The Platform with 56 million. Number 8, The Wrong Missy with 59 million. Number 7, Triple Frontier with 63 million. Number 6, The Irishman with 64 million. Number 5, Murder Mystery with 73 million. Number 4, we were just talking about this movie, Six Underground with 83 million. Number 3, Spencer Confidential with 85 million. Number 2, Bird Box with 89 million. And topping the list is Chris Hemsworth's own Extraction with 99 million.
That was a good movie.
Extraction?
Yeah, I like that.
I haven't seen it actually.
I've seen a bit of it. I know I'm gonna like it. My dad watched it all and loved it, so he's just like, it's very, very violent.
I love, like, you're so right. Like, hearing my parents' reactions to movies is sometimes the funniest thing humanly possible.
Yeah, it's like having a time capsule, right? Because they see things from when they thought shit was cool, and then if our stuff isn't cool, they're not afraid to call it out. They're just like, no, that's bullshit.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But if I make fun of my parents' telenovela, my God, I will still get my ass kicked.
Yep. Yep. I'm telling you, my dad, spaghetti westerns, man. Ooh.
Like,
All he watches, the old John Wayne.
what about the
and
Clint Eastwood?
Clint
trilogy?
Eastwood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Anything western. I showed him, what was it, the last one with Chris Pratt and everybody in it, and it's basically the Seventh Samurai.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Because it's all based off of samurai movies, and that blew my dad's mind. Because I'm like, I have Akira Kurosawa, his movies in my collection. And I'm like, this is the foundation of this western that you love, and he's just like, no, and I'm like, yeah, lots of dramatic, tense standoffs, and all kinds of things happen in these things.
Yeah. So right now, you brought up a natural segue into a new video game, but I still want to talk Netflix. So we will still talk Netflix, and then we'll jump into the video game that I know that we are both playing. So before we jump there, Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans are going to star in the next Russo brothers Netflix exclusive film. Right there alone, I am sold.
Yep. Sign me up. Let's check it out. I'm excited for that, whatever it is, unless it's a romantic comedy.
Oh, then I'm even more excited.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. No, I think about that. I have to recant it and go, you know what? I'm on board.
Oh, man.
Got to see what that looks like.
Yep. So, Phil, I think both you and I, we haven't really talked about it, but I think I saw when, on PlayStation that we were both playing the same game, and that is, the game that came out on Friday that I think is getting favorable reviews, and that is Ghost of Tsushima. What are your initial thoughts on playing, and roughly how many hours have you put into the game so far?
All right, so I'm going to preface this with a little bit of a backstory. This is not the game from Mr. Phil. There's a component of this game that's indicated by the title that there's going to be some kind of not kicking ass or kicking ass quietly, as Ghost would indicate. So right there, it wasn't on my radar. And then on the Wednesday, I guess the embargoes came off on the reviews. And I watch a great reviewer called ACG, who I would recommend checking out his YouTube channel. Incredibly honest, incredibly unbiased. And, it's just some reviewers just, if they love a game, it's probably going to come out of the gate pretty well for me.
Yeah.
And then watching his review, I decided, all right, let's sign up for this. So I did the digital download for $89, the deluxe, and it came in. And you know what? Honestly, it's everything that Garrick had mentioned in his review. That the visuals are stunning, the story is compelling, the world is very open, which normally is an alert for me, but this whole wind system that they've incorporated into the guiding of your character is absolutely genius, and it declutters the game so you don't have to really monitor a HUD. You're actually monitoring the environment. So there's a lot of bonuses to this game. The draw rate is absolutely massive. Like if there's smoke on the horizon, you're going to see it. from a very far distance away, and the world's not filling in. Like sometimes Last of Us 2, the world kind of fills in or it chunks in certain parts. So if something looks like it's not there, and then this highly detailed or this blurry building is there, and then it becomes this highly detailed building. So I'm like, okay, it's a little bit of the technology or whatever, but it seems like everything is just crisp all the time in this game. And to be honest, Sucker Punch as well. That was another house I played Seconds on. I played the Infamous line. It was interesting to see their take on this and to see it accepted and well reviewed. And yeah, I'm probably about, I don't think I'm huge into it yet. I'm just probably about 6 hours.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I received my copy yesterday morning at 10:30 a.m. The Amazon man came a knocking, and overall, I'm about 5, 6, 7 hours into it. I think the game looks absolutely stunning at times. There are also times where I think I need to preface this with saying that I play this on a PlayStation Slim. Phil plays this on his PS Pro. I've noticed that this has more clunkiness than Last of Us 2. The rendering takes a little longer on Ghost of Tsushima than as it does on Last of Us 2. If there's a lot going on in the background at once, I do see the camera slightly going a little slower at times because it's it's trying to think. But none of this goes against the game for me. It's just the things that I've noticed. The one thing, I have two major issues with the game so far. Number one is the controls, and I've always said this about modern day video game systems, and that is the more control you have as a character, the clunkier the overall character and movement feels. So there is a mission that it's a side mission that I did where I had to clear a bridge, and there were a bunch of archers on various points on this mini mountain range. And it felt so hard to get to where I wanted to be, and I felt that if I wanted to jump to a specific place, it wouldn't jump there, or it would glitch out for a second, or the consistency of the physics, where if you would jump too high, sometimes you're fine, sometimes you'll hurt yourself, sometimes you'll die. So that is, one of the major issues that I found with the game. It's just the overall controls are a little weird. It does take a little getting used to. I can see where, and how this game might feel repetitive after a while, but I know that the game is only about 20 to 25 hours, so I don't feel too bad. But I'm just saying, hey, I can see where it could be repetitive. So I hope that the overall fighting mechanisms and whatnot change up a little bit. Boss fights are really cool. The one-on-one kind of feels like a Street Fighter boss fight. Those are really cool. But yeah, like I said, the overall the way that the character moves can be a little dodgy at times. That's complaint number one. Complaint number two, and this seems to only happen on main missions. Like Phil mentioned, it is an open world game, but on main missions, especially when you're following someone, you cannot veer off the path that they give you, because you will get a timer. And I've died a few times because I'm like, oh, I can't even find where this person is right now, and I end up dying. I'm like, what the fuck? For such an open world game, having these missions where you're constrained to a very small scope of the map and path, if you're not even following the path that they want you to take, you're gonna die. That's kind of a piss off for me. So outside of those two things, I think the game is wonderful. I think the game is awesome. I think I'll be I'm gonna obviously play the entire game. It's a nice little send off for PlayStation 4 because I don't think that there are too many exclusives left. So I think it's a great game. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The story so far, I'm digging it. And yeah, it's just, I think it's overall fun.
For people listening, I think the best way that I could describe it as far as the genre that it is it's kind of like Red Dead Redemption meets Assassin's Creed. So there's a little bit of jumping and rock stuff and whatnot. And Boris is absolutely right to call that out, because there a couple curse words came out of my mouth when I thought I could make a jump that apparently the game physics decided I couldn't, even though I'd made that jump already on other places.
Yep.
It is weird. And as well, on one of the main missions into the new area, I was like, oh, look, the fox den. And I had seen enough pictures to know what the hell was going to happen in there. And I tried to go into the fox den, and it's like, you can't go there. You have 13 seconds to get the fuck back to the mission. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it just came out of nowhere where I'm like, okay, I thought I could go anywhere. And because I was on mission, now that I'm not on mission, I finished up the first 2 pre-missions. I'm able to fast travel around the world and stuff like that, even though it is one of those things where I did a fast travel last night, and I actually had a debate in my mind whether or not I should or shouldn't, because I thought it might be more enjoyable to ride my horse through this beautiful terrain and absorb the atmosphere that the game's creating. It almost felt like I was cheapening it by fast traveling, but I think I'm going to spend enough time in that saddle that it's not going to make a piddle of difference at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So so overall right now I'm super happy with the game, but I just wanted to call those 2 things out because those are 2 things that actually frustrated me quite a bit, to the point where I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I like this game right now. And I got over it pretty quickly, but yeah, there was 2 things that just really frustrated me, especially the mechanics and the physics of the game. That one really got to me. But overall it's a fun game. I'm having a lot of fun, and like I said, it's going to be a nice little send off for the PlayStation.
But nothing's perfect, right? Especially
Exactly.
with these complex games. And I'm going to have to check what setting I'm playing on my PS4, because I'm curious if I did the frame rate or the frame rate game, or the draw, the super high res, or just go with the frames.
Yeah.
But I haven't noticed a lot of popping. But again, you're right, it's a different machine. So
Yep, different machines, and yeah, so it is what it is, and yeah, it's we'll see. We'll touch base again when we've played more of the game, which, as our listeners have noticed, we kind of tend to do. It's initial impressions. Then, when we get far enough, or one of us are done, we talk about it again. But overall, I'm happy with the game. So one thing, moving on, I did also want to talk about movie theaters. And I know we talk about this all the time, but it's such an interesting story that keeps changing and evolving week over week. And that's simply because just we don't know what's going on. Especially in the States, where people are seeing record numbers of infections of COVID-19 right now. And unfortunately, places like California have had to lock back down because it just happens when
it's just out of hand, right?
Listen. But now analysts are saying that movie theaters could be closed until mid-2021.
Yeah.
Like, that is
moist.
Huge. Yep, dank and moist.
Dank and moist.
Yeah, no, and that is, to me, like, again, I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised. One thing is going outside, having a beer or a meal on a patio outside. And another thing is watching a movie in a enclosed, very little space with a bunch of other people, with minimal cleaning and whatnot. You can separate people all you want, but at the end of the day, it's just it's recycled air, it's dirty, it's whatever.
It's touching handrails, it's everything, right?
Yeah.
Common surfaces, all this stuff that we're now very acutely aware of. I was listening to Lou Later, and he mentioned a story about how Walmart in the States, I guess, I haven't seen it up here, but in the States, they're actually holding projections. They're doing drive-in movies at Walmarts because they have such large parking lots. And what they're doing is they're projecting the movie onto the side of the building, and then coming out and basically selling shit to people so they can sit in their car and watch the movie. And he brought up the fact that why the hell isn't Cineplex doing this up here? Because, again, you have these huge parking lots that are empty. You've got monstrous walls with the theaters inside. Throw up a tarp and broadcast the movie and start popping the popcorn and selling the expensive drinks and everything else, because that's a perfect way to mitigate this. I feel that really in Canada, the movie theater, like with Cineplex being the only option that we have, they've really dropped the freaking ball on this.
You know what?
Like,
the issue, Phil, is that a lot of companies just assumed that in a few months everything would be back to normal, and it's as if COVID-19 never existed, and it's all business
just
as usual.
Disappear.
Yep. That's honestly what a lot of people and companies and decision makers thought. And here we are. The reality of the situation is that, yes, here in Canada, things are more under control than in other places. Things seem to be on the uptrend of getting better. However, there's still the threat that it could come back in a second, harder wave. The reality is that we have to take precautions, and people overall, you know, on the one hand, they want life to get back to normal, but on the other hand, they want to and understand that, hey, there's a real threat out. So, you know, things are going to need to change. So this is 100% on those decision makers who just refuse to put an extra cent in planning, in maintaining their facilities. And guess what? You know, you're seeing the repercussions at this point, in my opinion. Like, people just, strategic planning was a lost art throughout the pandemic, and unfortunately, you know, now companies are going to suffer, and I feel bad for, you know, the employees and whatnot, but I feel worse for the other people that are going to be affected, like, you know, cleaning service companies and things like that. Like, yeah, you can make an argument that, you know, business has never been better, but there's no business if these places are closed and still shuttered. So, you know,
I'm just thinking the missed opportunity, though. It's like the lack of contingency. And I get it. Nobody can predict this. But, I mean, you got to think on your feet, right? So why don't you just take out a bunch of old movies like Back to the Future or something and throw it up on the side of the building? Because I'm sure, you know, when I go to the grocery store and I buy popcorn for the microwave, I'm looking at, you know, a $3 to $4 investment. When I go to a movie theater and I buy a bag of popcorn and a pop, we're talking like that's $20 out of my pocket. So that's a pretty freaking high markup, all things considered. And if you can get the rights to broadcast old movies and create that, you know, drive-in, that experience for people and still be safe. You know, I was thinking about this in relation to July Talk. They're putting on a show near where I live. And I was thinking about going, and ultimately I decided not to because I'm worried about the common spaces. I'm worried about taking a piss in a place where everybody else is taking a piss. I'm worried about, you know, the actual functioning of myself in that environment or those common spaces was enough to discourage me, because we're all fearful of outbreaks and things like that. And I don't want to sit here and go, oh, you got a call because apparently you took a leak at the July Talk concert. And now you may have COVID. You know, it's a really interesting thing that's happening, and I'm hoping there's contingencies to combat this, and my fears are not realized. And you know, they have a line of porta potties that are outdoors, and you know, they flush them with Lysol after each use or whatever it is. But you know, it amazes me how little planning has gone on, and I think Cineplex are taking the line that because the deal fell through with that UK buyout, that they were basically just sitting on their ass going, well, we're going to be bought anyway, so who cares how much money we lose? Well, apparently they lost so much money that it killed the deal. It broke one of the conditions of the buyout, and obviously with the world being the world, that company's just like, the fuck out of here, we don't want it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, not the time to rest on your loins and hope for the best. You know, a lot of companies have something to actually do and think about and plan for. And, you know, unfortunately, the entertainment sector is going to take the biggest beating because, you know, entertainment is just that. It's entertainment. It's kind of secondary to a lot of things like grocery stores and whatnot. So, you know, it'll be an interesting story to kind of see how this progresses.
Yeah, and I do feel that the restaurants as well are getting beat down on this, and I my heart bleeds for everybody who's affected by all this stuff, whether you're working at the Cineplex movie, you're working at a restaurant, whatever. do your best to support local business, order in, pull an app up or just call them direct and order a meal and go pick it up or have it delivered. But do your best to support the restaurants and whatnot in the economy in your local area, wherever you may be.
Yep.
All right.
Exactly. So, because of the way that the world is right now, people have been consuming a lot of their content indoors, at home, and like we talked about during our digital versus physical debate a couple weeks ago, we were kind of thinking about and discussing how streaming services are doing, and to no one's surprise, Netflix has added 10 million new subscribers during Q2.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
But their stock is taking a bit of a beating.
Their stock has taken a beating, and the reason for that is because while they have gained 10, and this is why I hate stock markets and analysts and and speculation, because while they did add 10 million subscribers, now the question is how is Netflix going to keep those 10 million subscribers? Will they keep those 10 million subscribers as the world goes back to normal? So, while this quarter they did well, the next quarter they might not have as many subscribers, or they might drop a few subscribers, but analysts don't take a look at what's actually happening in the world. They just look at the final numbers because that's all they care about. And while I understand that, there's so much more that goes into a business and the numbers and whatnot, but I just hate that speculation drives stock so much.
Yeah, it's part of the world, but I think those analysts as well might be looking forward. I don't know. They might be looking because they usually get access to information that sometimes we don't get as public. So I'm thinking that they might be looking at, the plate that Netflix has set out on the road ahead, where it's like, well, we don't see anything compelling as far as these shows. They're all sleeper shows. I don't know. There's got to be something. So.
Yep.
But so it could be sleeper shows, could be like there's a lot of reasons why these analysts and whatnot do what they do. Like I say, they get the confidential information and they might have a good idea. Then they get blown away too when a show actually catches and works, right? Like it'll be a sleeper hit that absolutely destroys. I think Bird Box or whatnot would probably be a movie that might look a little weird to an analyst, and then it absolutely kills for Netflix, right? Where their content is actually getting really good, like we were talking about with Old Guard and whatnot. There's and the new Chris Hemsworth movie. There's a lot of good stuff that Netflix is doing. Obviously, the bigger the star, the more these analysts will bet on it. But hey, it's the stock market, and sometimes it's a shit show.
Yeah, exactly. And another topic or piece of info that we brought up while we were talking about video games and the whole digital versus physical debate was as it pertains to the record number of sales, and this is kind of in line with the Netflix subscribers. Yeah, so the numbers for June have come out, and apparently spending across software, hardware, accessories, and game card, they reached $1.2 billion in June. That's up 26% from the same time a month ago. Or, sorry, same time, same month a year ago. And it is the most spent for the month of June since 2009.
Thank you, Last of Us 2.
And obviously, that was a huge driver. Last of Us 2 being just such a massive hit in regards to sales. But yeah, like
July is going to be good with Ghost and also with Paper Mario.
Yes.
Like Nintendo's got another follow up to Animal Crossing that's probably going to do really well. So good for them. And I know that they're talking about production being restored for the Switch, things like that. So some of the hardware stuff will be actually obtainable. As long as these buy bots don't keep on scooping them up and trying to theorize or speculate on the market as far as increased value and all that kind of crap. Just let people play their games. Let them get their content. And yeah, it looks like digital is really kicking butt right now. That's for sure. I think I bought, I don't recall, I think my last physical game that I bought was Animal Crossing. and only because I was being stubborn and I wanted to go to the store. Like, it was just before this pandemic stuff broke out. So,
Yep. So here's a fun little fact about The Last of Us 2. So clearly it is super popular, and I'm talking so far away from the mic sometimes today, so I apologize on that. It is 2020's biggest launch so far, and it's the second biggest in Sony history.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, the numbers are just absolutely insane. And it's funny because, like, we always talk about Xbox and Sony, and we always forget Nintendo. And anytime I look at these lists that have, biggest sales, most numbers, whatever, there's always a few Nintendo games scattered across those lists, like Animal Crossing and whatnot. So it's you always have to remember that there's a third player, more of a niche market, but it's a third player.
I would argue at this point, is Xbox even a player?
That's
Lack of exclusives is just a shit bomb. You know what? And they came out and they basically said, because we have so few exclusives, we're not even going to make you upgrade your existing console for a couple of years.
Well,
they're like, everything that's coming out on the new stuff will be backwards compatible on the old stuff, which good for them.
All right.
But it really is just monetizing that Game Pass, which is brilliant. I give them props where they're there. But man, the lack of exclusives are just weird.
All right, Phil, you brought this up, and this is actually the next subject I wanted to talk about. Thank you for bringing this up, and that is Xbox. They had one of their vice presidents go out and essentially say the future of gaming is actually making your software work for all versions. It doesn't matter that you don't buy our latest version because it'll be backwards compatible. And the important thing is that you're playing a title, not buying our latest, greatest system. And to me, and it's I love it because God bless Xbox stands. Because they're making this seem like this is the next big thing in gaming. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Where only a few years ago, they're like, we own the market. We have all the exclusive. We have this. We have that. And now that Xbox has essentially, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but the reality is that Xbox right now is conceding defeat to PlayStation 5 before the pre-order lists have even come out.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be a complete battle about not even selling the consoles, but selling the subscriptions for them. It's all going to be about this Game Pass. Apparently in September, they're releasing the xCloud. So you're going to be able to virtually game, much like Stadia, across all of your devices. All the titles like Halo Infinite and whatnot will have a mode where they can be played on an Xbox One or One S or X. And then they'll have obviously enhanced gameplay features on the new system when it comes out. The only way that they're going to counter some of this is getting in the market at a lower price. But even then, there's not a compelling catalog. Like Sony's just got that locked up because part of the fun is you get a new system and then you start playing the game that you bought with it.
Yeah.
Whether it's shit or not, you're stuck for a month or two sitting there waiting for more titles to fill into the market that you want to play. And at the same rate, you can go on to Sony's backwards, window into online play and whatnot, the PS Now and stuff like that, where you can get access to other games through that. And then indie developers start crowding into the marketplace and getting their games out at an accelerated rate and things like that. There are options, right, for non-exclusive stuff to hit on your new exclusive game system. But man, day one, you're talking about Spider-Man, you're talking about a lot of stuff that's going to keep people entertained for a long time. Like, they're not shit titles that they're launching with here. And you know what, like Uncharted 5 is just waiting in the wings. There's a lot of stuff, God of War 2, there's a lot of stuff sitting there that Sony can just pull out at a whim.
Yeah.
I was actually a little disappointed with some of the exclusive titles that they announced, that there wasn't a huge one, and I realized Sony don't even need to do that.
They don't
even need to do it.
Not right now. Right now the cards are for Microsoft to show us what they have, but right now, 100%, in my opinion, Sony is just that is the true video game console. And again, I know a lot of people will not agree with me, but the reality is that, as it pertains to exclusive, as it pertains to what drives people to buy a video game, Sony understands, the difference between PC gaming and console gaming, and I find that Xbox is still trying to think and determine what route they want to go to, because when Xbox One came out, a lot of speculation and rumors and innuendo kind of put them more into they are going to treat their video game platform like a video game platform, with cross
an entertainment platform.
An entertainment platform with cross compatibility, PC and Xbox, and they were going to have this trend, but now they just seem so lost. They don't like it, from all the news that I'm seeing. Like, I just don't think that they have a true vision for what they want Xbox to turn into at this point.
Well, I think what they've done quietly in the background is pick up a lot of indie studios and whatnot. So I think that they may have some cards up their sleeve, but they completely bobbled the whole fucking thing with the Xbox, like the previous version.
Yeah.
And that just got right out of hand with this exclusive stuff. And I remember Phil Spencer trying to tell me that Crackdown 3 was going to be their game of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I have Xbox, the Game Pass. I played it day one, Crackdown 3. It's a steaming pile of crap.
Yeah.
Like, for an exclusive. If you like the Crackdown series, you're going to go climb some buildings and shoot some guns. And it filled that void for 30 seconds. Happy me. Oh, yeah, I remember playing Crackdown 1. And this feels like the same. So I get it, but it's not a AAA title.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that you need to sell consoles. Because really, they're telling me all my games go backwards compatible in the new thing. So why the hell do I have to buy the new thing when my Xbox is working?
Yep.
Just
exactly.
put the game in there.
That's the thing that, like, for me, I just don't understand is the messaging that they're making. It's like, meanwhile, Sony is going to be raking in thousands of dollars per person for their new system with unbelievable specs and unbelievable exclusives, and there you have it. And one thing that I do want to call out that you did bring up is the fact that all of the Xbox exclusive aren't AAA titles. They bought Rare. Rare has some awesome titles, but we haven't seen the next Killer Instinct. We've seen Battletoads, we've seen things like that, bullshit like that you can download and whatever. No one gives a real shit about in the grand scheme of things. But there's no title that's gonna entice me at this point to buy an Xbox. There's a lot of rumors and innuendo out there that Microsoft is looking to buy Warner Brothers Studios, the video game, and that would be huge for them. That would piss me off, but that would be huge for them, and that would be a big win
Batman.
for them. Exactly. The whole Batman series and whatnot, and and that's great, but until I see signature on paper, until I see an announcement, it's all rumor and innuendo for me. But meanwhile, on the Sony side, you have exclusives on things like Spider-Man, like that, just that alone, Last of Us. You have exclusive essentially of Final Fantasy Remake for a few years. You have Ghost of Tsushima. You have so many exclusive that just to me, it's just unreal how many exclusives they have. And, while we can argue all day about exclusivity and whether that's good for business, when it comes to video games, clearly Sony knows what they're doing, and they know how to captivate their users, the consumers who are going to be using these games. Because I think one thing Sony does understand is that a lot of people eventually are going to buy both systems, but what they're trying to do is making you buy their system first right now.
Yeah. That's basically what it's come down to. If Xbox is sitting there saying, I don't need to buy it for a couple of years, well, it goes to the back of the line, no matter what price point it comes in at. But, I will give credit to Xbox on a couple exclusives that they have in-house, right? Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport series. Those are excellent. I can't get a game that has a good driving simulator or gives me as much pleasure as those ones for driving. And, the Halo. I guess Halo and Gears. Those are the pillars that are propping up Xbox right now. And I don't like. Obviously, Halo's going to be launching Infinite. Halo Infinite is going to be launching with the new console or around that time. I just can't see, the 343 or whoever is in charge of Gears just coming forward and going, oh, we got this new Gears, because they just had a game last year and it takes a long time to do development. And on that front, that Warner Brothers, if that acquisition goes through, like, what are we looking at? There's still a development cycle for a video game to actually get to that level for it to be, you're 2-3 years out at the very minimum.
And if they are working on games, they're just not going to up and cancel games without a penalty on other platforms. So there's just so much to consider, with all the rumors that are coming out. And, talking about the next generation of video games and video game consoles, there are a lot of rumors that PlayStation 5 production is going to be doubled because of demand. We've seen so many reports come out that they've been halved, that they've been, a percentage of what they were. Now we're seeing that they're actually doubled. So to make sure that anyone who wants a system can get a system for the holidays, that to me is just brilliant and great on Sony, because I'm gonna pick up at least one system for myself. And if I can get a second one for my nephew, who I know is listening, that would be fantastic too. That kid has never bought a system with his own money, but it's one of those things, like, now we have options, as opposed to one per family, and you're going to probably have to wait 6 months before you can buy a second one. So it's good to see that. Now, also with that, there's been a lot of speculation and reports about when pre-sales will start, and people must be pissing off retailers because there's no news right now about when pre-sales are going to open, but there were a lot of statements basically, and Sony said, hey, chill out, we're going to give you ample time for signups and pre-sales and things like that, so just be patient, you're going to have time. It's not going to just be a spur of the moment thing. So, it's kind of funny because you can only imagine, the phone calls going to customer service at various websites and then GameStop and things like that. So it's just funny that Sony said, chill, everyone.
Yeah, and they're in a great place. Obviously, I think the concern was people wouldn't have the disposable cash to buy a new system, given all this COVID stuff. Now they're realizing with these record sales each month, like you pointed out, that there is some disposable cash, and basically they're going to up the production off of the earlier fears that people just weren't going to buy it. So, some of the quotes that I've seen from Sony are basically just saying you don't even need to pre-order it. You're just going to be able to walk in and get it. There's going to be lots.
Yep.
So don't worry. Just everybody chill. There's going to be hardware to buy. We want your money. And they're doing surveys as well, from what I hear, with people to try and get this price point, to try and figure out what the discless version is going to be, what the disc version is going to be, how much money, what the discrepancy the market will tolerate, all that kind of market research. And I would also imagine that there's a lot of factories that aren't doing a lot right now that are probably loving this business, and maybe that's affecting the price of the product, where they're able to get better deals for production, which drives the price down, right? Where they're able to say, hey, guess what? We're able to save $30 on each console due to these production offers during COVID. So they might be able to $30 means it might be, shrinkable to a $50 price point or something like that, or maybe more. Who knows, right? Where Sony are able to take a beating.
Well, and that's the thing, like, Sony has obviously in the past taken a hit on every console sold, and now with COVID, we just don't know what's kind of happening in that production realm of the world. For all that we know, they've been able to secure more pieces for a cheaper price, which, is a win-win for everyone, including the manufacturer of these pieces and these parts. So, yeah, it's just like, I am so interested to see the price point, the dates, and just kind of where the next generation of gaming is going to be. And to be honest, like, I'm super interested to see what Microsoft plans to do, because I feel like right now their backs are against the wall, And I'm sure they have a few aces up their sleeves, and I'm just interested to kind of see what those are, because I just don't believe in my heart, deep down, that they have given up and that they are ready to lose the console war for a second generation before the next generation even begins.
Yeah, they've got something up there. We'll find out this week. I think there's an event happening.
Yeah.
So we will have more.
And it's funny because, like, as much information as Sony gave out, they're still waiting for Microsoft to announce more so that they can, like, wham us with more info. It's just, I love the games that they're playing.
It's a cat and mouse right now. You know what? At the end of the day, with all this, competition's good, and we benefit as a customer.
Yep.
Prices are going to be down. Selection's going to be there. Titles are going to be there. But really, when you get down to brass tacks about what system are you going to buy, you're going to buy the system that your friends are buying. And if your friends are buying Sony, guess what? I could be the biggest Xbox fan in the world. If I want to play with them, I'm going to be getting a Sony.
Well, isn't that technically what happened? Like,
yeah.
You went PlayStation 4 because at the time, you and I, that's what we would always talk about.
Yeah, and my other gaming crowd too, Mike and Mike, we had to lean one of the guys into the PS4 over the Xbox, but it was basically just so we could all play together. That was it. So that's the way consoles go.
Yep.
And, Microsoft knows it, and I think that's why they can be no matter what ace is up their sleeve, they know that they're going to stumble out of the blocks with this generation, but it's a marathon. So who knows who's going to win it? Maybe this xCloud thing is going to be amazing. Maybe it's going to just absolutely suck, and completely obliterate the market for needing a console at home if they're actually able to do what Stadia can't. I don't know. And as well, Sony went to Microsoft and basically bought all their online streaming kind of crap through Microsoft. So Microsoft is kind of laughing because they're getting money on the backside to provide Sony with its streaming service because they need their resources. So it kind of, at the end of the day, Microsoft are probably still laughing to the bank.
Yep. So we've talked about this in the past. I was nervous and scared, and now we're seeing it. But Suicide Squad fans have announced July 20th as hashtag Release the Ayer Cut Day.
Oh boy. Not happy.
This is exactly what we were afraid of.
Yeah, there's going to be, bring back Phil Lord and Chris Miller for Solo.
Yeah.
I want to see the Solo cut.
Yeah.
I want to see,
the Lord
all the
cut.
spilt milk.
Listen, boys and girls and listeners everywhere. Just because a movie was bad doesn't mean that it was because of the studio and the director having differences. Sometimes a movie is bad because it's just fucking bad. And I think we're all going to see, you know what? And I want to be wrong about this. I want in November, or whatever the fuck it's going to happen, and I'm talking about the Snyder Cut, I want to be so wrong that I go on this show and I eat my words. But the skeptic in me is saying there was just so much against that movie to begin with. And let's take a step back and see what's actually happening with this quote-unquote Snyder Cut. There were so many rumors that it was people have seen it, that people this and people that, but the reality is that it never existed. So they are literally taking feedback and making a new cut of the movie so that hopefully fans can appreciate it, can like it. It's not, and the truth is, we don't know whether it's going to be like a 6-hour movie, a miniseries, or what have you. We don't know any of that information yet. And there's no guarantee that it's going to be any better. Phil, there's a chance that it could be worse. Yeah,
I feared when I heard that they're doing supposed reshoots for it and stuff like that, and injecting people like Ryan Reynolds as characters into the DC universe and stuff like I've seen a lot of wild speculation, but I've also seen the idea that it's a mini series like The Watchmen was, that type of thing. And I'm like sitting there going, you know what, if I'm a true fan of this stuff, and not to say that if you don't agree with me or not, for my money, it's gonna fuck up the canon timeline as a DC fan too. Like, especially bringing back certain characters I've seen, in other enterprises, that Michael Keaton's being brought back as Batman, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it gets confusing when you start crossing the canon. And the nostalgia factor aside.
Here's the thing, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, the whole Michael Keaton thing. And that is because, for those who haven't heard, there's a lot of rumors going around the entertainment world that Michael Keaton will be back in some shape, way, or form as Batman, Bruce Wayne. And how is he going to be shoehorned into the DC extended universe? And this goes back to something that, I would always talk about in the previous incarnations of this show, and that is that, DC in the comics world is heavily built on the whole concept of the multiverse and having various Earths and whatnot. And, as we saw in the CW show, they were able to pull off the Crisis of Infinite Earths with a lot of the various worlds. So even, the 1989, Earth 89 was Batman. We saw and we knew that was the original Tim Burton Batman world. So DC as a whole is built on this concept of the multiverse and whatnot, and it can get really confusing. And this is all new concepts that we haven't really seen in entertainment outside of comic books. So for the average viewer, all of this can be super confusing, but for someone who, like me, who is a DC fanboy, reads a lot of the comics, and, really loves the whole concept of the multiverse, it really opens up the door. And like I always said when when Justice League came out, was all of this can be retconned if they open up the multiverse, because you can change whatever you want. So right now the rumor is that Michael Keaton is going to be back to playing Batman in the Flashpoint movie, which is the standalone Flash movie. And for those of you who don't know, the Flashpoint series or comic book was essentially the end of the old DC era in 2011, right before in September of 2011, when the New 52 came out and retconned the entire DC universe, and they started from scratch. So it's just interesting that, here we are talking about Flashpoint. We have the Snyder Cut happening. There was a lot of rumor, speculation that it would involve the multiverse down the road, especially with Apocalypse. And now you have the DCEU, which to me, it just seems, re-energized, and there's a lot of hype around it. Henry Cavill says he's going to come back as Superman. So, there's just a lot of opportunity from something that was destroyed. So we'll see, but it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with the DC extended universe.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it as a fan. Obviously not as in depth on DC as you, my friend. I want Henry to have the mustache, though. I'm deep into that.
Did you see him build a computer last week?
Yeah, I saw that, man.
Now I know how I look when I build a computer. I always wondered what I would look like, and now I know.
Yeah. Hey, and it's funny because I've seen a lot of slag on Joss Whedon this week too. A lot of articles coming out that basically are complaining about his personal habits on set, or his ego and stuff like that. It's interesting that this war is now going on with the Snyder Cut to further try to, discredit the guy who had to step in, and make Justice League or give it a go, right? So I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of planted stories and a lot of information that are just trying to sway people into a certain mode to ingest their new content.
To me, it's interesting that Joss Whedon went from like the pinnacle nerd director to, Poison. Like, actors have spoken out against him. A lot of people gave him so much shit after Avengers Age of Ultron came out. He picked up after the tragedy in Snyder's life to finish Justice League and put it out in theaters on time, and he's gotten nothing but slack over the last several years, and it's just crazy to see that, like, what, as someone who was once held as a visionary for the inclusivity of women and representation and all that fun stuff, to almost a laughing stock, and has been able to almost ruin two franchises, being the Avengers and Justice League, of all franchises too. It's just crazy how all of that is going, and seeing all these stories come up. So, I'm sure that there's more to it than like Transformers. There's
Yeah.
more than meets the eyes.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire when it comes to that kind of stuff. I get it. Like, it can be rooted out of something, but I found it odd too. I found it really bizarre. But I don't think he did bad on the Avengers. I don't even know that I think too illy of Justice League. It speaks to a bigger issue with the people calling the shots on DC in making the continuity and the universe feel right, and production, story, all that stuff. They have a lot of content that they can obviously use, and I don't think they're using it wisely.
Yes. So, as we're talking about multiverse and TV and movies and all this and that, I think we should talk a little bit about some of the shows that were planned to premiere on Disney Plus, specifically Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was originally slated to debut in August of this year. It has
Nope.
been removed from the lineup. We do not know when it will be coming out, but yeah, it's obviously been delayed because of COVID-19. That's the assumption, at least. So I shouldn't say obviously. The assumption is that it's been delayed because of COVID-19. And apparently that is the only show right now that has been moved out. Wanda and Vision, that is still slated. The Hawkeye show is still slated for that time frame. But yeah, and part of me also makes me wonder if there's, a tie-in with the Black Widow movie, and that's the reason it kind of got silently moved out. Like, we
Hmm.
just don't know. And the way that Marvel works, one can make a lot of assumptions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been reading some articles as well about, or seeing some content, I guess, about the idea that the new Guardians being delayed because of James Gunn
Yeah.
and Suicide Squad 2 has kind of screwed up a lot of stuff in how they were going to roll out this phase of Marvel. And now they're going to have to go the Bucky route on Marvel and do the super serious movies as the role, instead of wanting to open with the rocket side and be the zany space stick kind of more offbeat characters. They're going down the serious path now,
Yeah.
and they're going to finish up with the spacey weird stuff. So I think that there was a whole play in there to get Galacticus or whoever it is, right,
Yeah.
to reprise this role, and now they have to go the gritty route. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens.
It's kind of disappointing though, because I think Disney Plus are lacking a lot of serious content
There.
when it comes to fresh. When you look at Netflix now, the gloves are off. Netflix were perfectly poised for a lot of production stuff to get done, and Disney dragged their feet. Wasn't sure.
Yep.
You know.
A lot of the things that were slated to come out, like, really, in terms of original content, you had Mandalorian. That was the major selling point of Disney Plus to begin with. And, you had their library, but at some point, they're going to need to come out with their own fresh content. And yeah, you had, some of their theatrical releases move to Disney Plus. You had Hamilton, but, from a, from a geekdom point of view, they have a lot of work to still do. You're even seeing Amazon Prime pump out a lot of exclusive. You have The Boys season 2 coming out soon. Hulu, you have a lot of exclusives coming out. So really, Disney Plus has to do something before they get lost in the shuffle, because you have Peacock, the NBC streaming service that came out, kind of, I guess, silently to mixed reviews last week. So, this is so much right now, and content is key for all of these streaming services. And, all things considered, Disney being Disney, having and owning everything that they do, it's a little concerning for me to see how far behind they are in the exclusivity realm.
Yep. And they banked, like they told people, take it to the bank. You know, you're gonna have Falcon Winter Soldier, all this stuff. Like they sold it based on off of a lot of those titles, and then they went aggressive as well. Obi-Wan, a lot of stuff that way on the Star Wars front, and then Obi-Wan got delayed because of writing issues and things like that. You know, I don't think it was had anything to do with COVID. It just, I think they just kind of sat down and said, "Holy shit, this is getting out of control.
Yeah,
Our storylines, our content is just getting too fractured."
and Clone Wars, as good as Clone War was, it's not technically selling subscriptions to people. For me, it's an added bonus. But I didn't get Disney Plus just because of Clone Wars. As much as I loved it, that's the reality
and
for me.
they've got the new show, The Bad Batch, coming up now too.
Yep.
So good on them for keeping that, keeping in that time frame and trying to tell some more compelling stories with some characters that we got out of the, the end of the Clone Wars. But I agree, like that kind of stuff is kind of softball. It's supportive of the bigger titles that we all wanted to see, and really get involved in the complexity of being able to tell these stories in a weekly series versus trying to digest it in 2 hours, right? So, it's a tough one. I think, Disney aren't to blame for anything. Obviously, with COVID or whatever the reasons are, I definitely support them pulling back on Star Wars to get the right approach versus trying to forge ahead with crap, right? We all don't want that. So they're doing what we want. It's just something's got to give in this situation. And Disney Plus, I'm thinking about cutting some streaming services because I just got too many. And Disney Plus kind of sits at the chopping block right now because I'm like, how many times can I watch The Simpsons?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have a little bit of comic news before we wrap up this part of the show. So Keanu Reeves has announced that he will be kind of in a comic book at Boom Studios. So Matt Kind of Mind, MGMT Management creator, and Keanu Reeves, they are going to team up to release Berserker. So BRZRKR, which will launch on October 7th, which will be a monthly series with art by Alessandro Vitti. So I saw some concept art, and it's Keanu Reeves on paper. What more can you ask for? And
I like the name Berserker, man.
Yeah, and
Kevin Smith.
Yeah,
that Clerk soundtrack, Berserker.
And Boom Studios has a deal with Netflix, so I can see something happening there in the future. American Vampire is one of my most favorite comic books. It's Scott Snyder and Raphael Albuquerque. It's come out, I believe they've already had 3, volumes. The final chapter is coming out, and it's American Vampire 1976, and I absolutely love this tale because it reminds me of of Interview with a Vampire. You kind of see these characters progress throughout time. You have a good guy, you have a bad guy, and it's kind of the fight between the two and various locations, various times, and it's such a beautiful comic book art-wise, and with Scott Snyder of Batman fame writing it. So I can't wait for that to come out. And it's kind of like this is the end of this legacy, so it'll kind of be cool to see where they go with that. And the last bit of news in the comic book front is a little sad for me because DC has announced that issue number 50 of Batgirl will be the series finale for now of this run, this volume of Batgirl, and that comes out later on this year. I believe it's October, and it's going to be a extra-sized, post-Joker Wars run, and then we'll see kind of what happens with the Barbara Gordon character. Of note is that also Harley Quinn is ending. So you have Batgirl and Harley Quinn ending at the same time. So I can kind of see some possibilities, but we will see. And that's supposed to come out, like I mentioned, in October. So that's a little bit of comic news there. Phil, do you have anything before we wrap things up?
I'm going to give you my Animal Crossing update.
I absolutely don't want to hear it, but I'm sure our listeners do.
All right. So I got the stupid puppy dog to play the concert on my island. I finally decided to address the elephant in the room that I've been avoiding, and I got my island up to 3 stars from 1 star. So apparently, I didn't have enough people living on the island. This game doesn't tell you shit as far as how to play it. So I'm like, all right. So now I kid you not, I sent Boris a screenshot. I have a fucking guy that moved in. He's a pig named Boris. His
Life
blue pig
imitating
showed
art.
up on my.
Love it.
And yeah, the most classic Boris way. The first encounter I have with him, he goes, "Hey, how you doing, Phil?" And I'm like, "Okay, you have very limited dialogue options with him." And then basically he goes, "Oh, I think I left my stove on. Do you think I left my stove on? Do I have a stove?"
I feel like we've had this conversation at some point in time too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I also did another thing that I don't know. This is a funny update, but my one guy walks around saying phrases all the time, and he asked me to give him a new phrase. So I thought, okay, it's me playing on my island by myself. I'm not connected to anything. I gave him a new phrase, and I didn't know what the filters would be like. So I said, bum plug. All right. So I thought it would be funny because seeing him use these phrases in other ways, I just thought it would be funny to just see the occasional bum plug word come up when he's talking. And then he turns to me and he says, "Hey, Phil, bum plug. I like that. I think every time I think of bum plug, I'm going to think of you. Bum plug, bum plug. There you are." And he put a whole screen of bum plug across.
Amazing.
So I just thought the AI is just completely whacked on this. And now the guy's walking around and convincing all my other island residents to use the word bum plug with me. So, yeah.
Fucking
Animal Crossing, everybody.
Motherfucking Animal Crossing. That's crazy. Well, that is that. I don't even know what to say sometimes. I really don't.
I do. All right. I want everybody out there to visit us at www.itscanon.com. It's Canon Podcast. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us at It's Canon Podcast. Email at show@itscanonpodcast.com. Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where you find podcasts, and make sure to click and like us and give us a review.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone who has left reviews, everyone who does subscribe. I hope that you're having as much fun listening to the show as Phil and I have creating it for you. The reality is that we create the show for ourselves. If anyone else listens, that's a plus. So thank you to all of our listeners and everyone who does send feedback. I really do appreciate it, and I love doing this show. I really do. It's been on my life on and off for 5 years, so it's been a lot of fun, and it's kind of like a geeky therapy session for me, so I really do enjoy it. So on Wednesday, we are going to have part 2 of this week's episode, where Phil and I are joined by Lauren Stone of Toy Wizards. She's the editor-in-chief out there, and we talk about all things toys. It's a fantastic conversation. You're going to absolutely love it. And it's a fun time. We talk about toys in regards to kind of our holy grails. We talk about Funko and kind of where they stand. We talk about exclusivity in the toy market and whether that actually hurts things. We kind of talk also about just generally what we like and what we don't like in regards to toy sales and collecting toys. But that's all for now. We thank you so much for listening. Show would not be possible without listeners like you. So thank you so much. I'm Boris, he's Phil, and that is the It's Canon Podcast. Thank you.